But it's time now for GB News star and leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice. And David Lammy sensationally admitted that Britain would start dating the EU under a Labour government. The Shadow Foreign Secretary was speaking at a conference fringe event hosted by the Tony Blair Institute, and he told the audience, "We had a very, very bitter divorce with the EU. It's a divorce that went on for years and years and years. No one in this room, in all seriousness, would suggest you can have a divorce and that you could get married again without even going on a date." What's he on about? My goodness. Talking in riddles. Well, Richard, is this proof that if Labour get into power, they will spend 5 years undoing Brexit?
I think actually he's really exposed himself. The reality is that he wants a long dating process ahead of remarrying the entity that we have just left.
He said the bad bit out loud.
Absolutely, and you can see it clear as day. Frankly, I think this is a moment where we should have very rapid speed dating and say, have a look, hello, thank you, bye, we don't like that actually because you're in recession, you're struggling. And that's the reality. Why would you want to get closer and handcuff and tie yourself to an entity where the main countries like Germany are in recession, really struggling? They're now essentially demolishing wind farms in order to extract coal again because they've got themselves in such an absolute pickle. There's no growth across the main countries in Europe. Labour have actually worked out that you've got to talk about growth. I've been banging on about it for the last 2 years. I think they're absolutely clueless because all of their policies, whether it's tying yourself to the EU, whether it's obsessed with the madness of the job-destroying, money-destructing net zero, will destroy growth. It won't create growth. And that's what the country has got to realise and challenge Labour on. And because they set out no policies that will create growth.
How much can be done in power over 5 years? To what extent can Labour reconnect us with the EU and undo Brexit? How much can be done and how much is irreversible?
Well, that's a very good question.
We are out, so why should we worry?
Well, I'll tell you why, because the reality is, yes, legally we've left, but we haven't taken advantage of the fantastic Brexit opportunities out there. The whole point was, you take back control of your laws, money and borders. Well, we've opened our borders to mass migration, we haven't deregulated, and we haven't cut taxes in order to create growth, and therefore our growth is spluttering, slightly better than Germany's, whereas take the US, for example, you know, they're soaring away again, and that's because they've got lower regulations, daft regulations, and they've got lower taxes, and they've got cheap energy because they use their own shale gas.
Yeah.
And we refuse to use this great treasure trove under our feet called oil, gas, shale gas. We've even got a bunch of lithium we're not using. Yeah. But the whole thing's insane.
We've got decades of oil, decades of coal, decades of gas. We've got at least 20 years of gas.
And we, the taxpayer, own it. So we should actually extract it and get the benefit from it, rather than leave it as an untapped asset underground and send our money overseas to buy someone else's gas.
But aren't Labour entitled to flirt with the EU? After all, they're our biggest trading partner, and they just want to make that relationship work better for the British people.
Everyone bangs on about being our biggest trading partner. They're not. Our single biggest trading partner is the United States of America, with whom we have a large trade
biggest
surplus.
Market. I think it's the biggest market we've got access to.
And we've got a free trade deal with them. But it's still not the biggest part of our economy. I think it's about 11 or 12% of our overall economy. Look, but it's not a growing market. Focus on where the growth is. The growth is in the US. The growth is in Asia, where we've just done a big trade deal.
Sure, but why this antipathy to collaborating with the Europeans?
We are collaborating with them. We've got a free trade deal with them. And yes, frankly, they've been a right pain in the backside in terms of the way they interpret some of the rules and the regulations. We've been daft enough to sign up to an even more burdensome Windsor framework than the previous horrific protocol. And we should just tell them we're not going to do this stuff.
So, but Labour would argue they're going to fix our relationship with the EU so that actually we can collaborate on controlling the migrants crisis, because that's a shared problem, and that actually engaging with Europe will boost our economy. That's what Labour say.
They do say that, but the reality is, I'll just repeat it again, the EU main nations are in recession, so you don't want to get closer to something that is spluttering and coughing and struggling and in recession. You want to get as far away from it and focus on where there's growth, because that's how we get growth.
Let me tell you that you did not splutter or cough this weekend. I watched various speeches from your conference. I thought you spoke brilliantly, very direct, you shot from the hip, very authentic stuff. Tell me about the the plans, the ambitions of your party? What does success look like at the next
Well, the
election?
first success was on Saturday because we had more people, almost 1,000 people in the main hall, which was, apart from the Prime Minister's speech, it was busier than the main hall in the Conservative Party in Manchester.
Donald Trump 1,000 people was like actually 30.
No, this is a Richard Tice 1,000 people, so it might have been 999, but, you know, I tell it as it is.
Great attendance.
Great attendance, and look, the mood was fantastic, and we've got many, many hundreds of candidates, and I repeat, we're standing everywhere in England, Scotland and Wales, and we will give people a proper democratic range of options, different policies, the right common sense policies, and that will make a difference.
Low tax, stop the boats.
Low tax, stop the boats. We're the only people with a credible policy that will stop the boats. We know it works, because it worked 10 years ago for Australia, and guess what? The boats haven't come back. So why not copy what we know works?
Law?
No, they didn't break international law.
They
got a bit of flack from a bunch of woke lefties, but actually they didn't break international law. We should do the same. We can do it within the existing treaties. I've read these treaties. I know it's a pretty dull old read, but I've read these treaties, and we're entitled to do it. It requires leadership and courage, Mark, about which this Conservative government has none.
And you are a brand new star on GB News, leader of a national political party, hoping to move the dial in a year's time. Are you having fun at the People's Channel?
Huge fun at the People's Channel, and it's great because I get recognised now all over the country. It's extraordinary. I go and talk to events and things. People say, I've seen you. It's you. I see you on GB News.
Yeah.
It's amazing. The exponential growth is something that everybody should be incredibly excited about.
Have you got groupies?
Have I got groupies? Oh, I couldn't possibly comment.
There you go. A diplomatic answer. Richard, we'll catch up really soon. My thanks to Richard Tice, leader of Reform UK.